We went behind enemy lines yesterday for some Jets Bills, but we need more ahead of the critical Jets Bills rematch coming up on Sunday. This one in Buffalo. Let's get into it.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field Gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor Gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been on.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Austin Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show every morning live at 7:30. The audio is also available wherever you get your podcast by simply searching for Boy Green Daily. Also, keep a lookout. I'll be on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo with Sal Capaccio and Matt Beauvais as we talk Jets Bills. So keep a look on that on the Buffalo side of things. But with that being said, let's bring on our special guest. We had him on for the very first Jets Bills matchup, which seems like eons ago. It is Anthony from Cover One. He was so nice, we had to bring him on twice. What's up, Anthony? Good morning.
What's up, Paul? Thanks for having me back. I'm pumped.
Wow, things are a little different than they were back in September, my friend. That's for sure.
Man, we were just talking offline before we went live, just like, the state of both teams and neither team thinking they'd be in this spot. And for the Bills, it was a little more of like a precipitous drop. I mean, obviously, like week one starts out not great, but you can kind of chalk that up to like week one. Allen makes a bunch of mistakes. Jets have always kind of had their number recently. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But then the injuries and the slide, which it's just been brutal for the Bills with the Jets. Like that week one, like at 4 plays in or whatever, Rodgers goes down and you're all just kind of like, what the hell? And then even within that win, like the win is awesome, but then you're still sitting there being like, now we're going forward with Zach Wilson again. Like it's just the season that you did not think it was going to be. And I really like, that's such a huge piece for me because the Jets defense again is so good. There's been very little drop off. And I'm sitting here thinking for the Jets, the same thing like I was before the season, which was, man, if you just got a halfway decent Aaron Rodgers, imagine what what this Jets team could be. And now you're basically just having the same conversation this year that you did last year, which was the Jets defense is carrying the shell of an offense as much as they can and kind of seeing what you can do. But then you beat the Eagles and you got all these cool moments. Man, sports are awesome, but also stupid. Like it's just so brutal.
Yeah, you painted an interesting picture. That's it. Like wins against Buffalo, which I guess is interpreted differently now based on their season they've had. But still, the divisional win. You have the Eagles win, who you've never beaten in franchise history, which was a weird fun fact, not so fun for Jet fans. They just win that one. That's the Eagles' only loss on the season. Like it's, again, football is bizarre. Let's get into that. Yesterday, like I said, we had Joe Miller III on. That was fun to have him on. But one of the things we didn't get into were all the injuries for the Bills, which I really think, like Matt Milano, who had the pick against Zach Wilson in the first game, Tre'Davious White, and I've heard all this. We'll get into that one a little bit later. I've heard a lot of Von Miller chatter. So we'll start with the big-time injuries. How have the Bills how affected have they been? Because it still looks like the Bills defense has been playing pretty good, all things considered, despite some of these injuries. But how have they dealt with these and how have they tried to rebound from them? Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, and I think it's Daquan Jones too on the interior.
Yeah. It's been an interesting mix. Like they've kind of treaded water at times and been all right. And then other times just looked vulnerable. I think on the whole, I think they've been all right, all things considered, which is like a key, like you said, but it's a far cry from the defense that they were to start the year and that the defense that they could be when healthy, which I guess you can say to a degree for everyone, but for like any team, but they had so much talent on that side of the ball, a lot of cohesion and chemistry with one another. And they were just clicking with this kind of new version of their defense with Sean McDermott as defensive coordinator. And they were a legitimate, complete football team. This defense could bail you out. They could win games for you. I think you're really seeing it again, as their numbers statistically from an advanced metric standpoint are not great. They're not getting off the field. They're not generating turnovers as much. And then you've seen them not lose, but not step up when they needed to. Like, for as much as the offense has had struggles, and this isn't to say like the offense is blameless or whatever, but Bills go down, they score against New England, and then the Patriots just drive it right down their throat, win the game. Even similar to this Denver game, the Bills take the lead with under 2 minutes. Russell Wilson drives them right down. So the moments where they haven't been able to step up, and a lot of it has been due to those injuries. Daquan Jones was playing at an all-pro level on the interior. He's been such an important piece for their run defense. Schematically, he allows them to play with those light boxes and not really have to worry about being in nickel too much because of what he does up front. But he added so much pass rush pop, which is just an aspect of his game that you wouldn't expect. And granted, the sample size is still small, but out of 235 qualifying defensive linemen, he's still 5th right now in the league in pass rush productivity. And that's an aspect of his game that you're not expecting. That's just icing on the cake. So he was a huge loss on the interior. And then, Matt Milano, all-pro player last year, an absolute chaos creator and disruptor who took his game to another level this year. The way he blitzes, the way he plays the run, what he does in coverage. And I think his loss was big as well because you had questions about the linebacking core with Tremaine Edmonds' departure. And then Terrell Bernard stepped in, and Bernard was playing really good, and him and Milano were playing off each other. And you're like, okay, this can work. But then Milano goes out. And it's been a rotation between Tyrell Dodson and Dorian Williams. Tyrell Dodson is not equipped to be a starter in the NFL. Dorian Williams might be, but he should not be seeing the field as a rookie with the defense he came from at Tulane and trying to get accustomed to NFL life. And now Terrell Bernard is the senior at that linebacker spot. And so you've got some vulnerability there. Dodson's vulnerable in coverage. Dorian Williams is vulnerable from a processing and coming forward standpoint, just kind of getting lost in the sauce at times and with misdirection and eye candy and things. And in addition to just like playing some match coverage pieces and knowing who to pick up and when and where. Corner hasn't been – that's probably the spot where they've seen the least drop off, not a knock against Trey White because Trey is phenomenal. And he was starting to get back to that version of Trey White. I think what also makes his injury so difficult to swallow is it came on a play where 4th down against Miami and he shuts down Tyreek Hill, but kind of in a one-on-one, even though he has to go over the top. Like he was starting to get back to that all-pro Trey White form, but he goes down. But they have depth at corner. Dane Jackson is able to fill in. He's a quality depth guy. They trade for Rasul Douglas, who's looked good in his 2 games with the Bills, but it's very much just been rough back there. Micah Hyde got banged up recently, and you talked about Von Miller and what he's kind of been or not been. Greg Rousseau was also dealing with multiple foot injuries, and he's gotten through it and playing well, but he's not able to get up to the level or speed that he could be at. So it's very much been like a mash unit on that side of the ball, and they're holding it together. But yeah, man, it's disappointing knowing kind of similar to what the Jets offense was, right? Like they're plugging along, but it's disappointing. Well, I guess for the Bills, there's more known quantity and knowing what it could be, but there's that like, man, just imagine if we had so-and-so, but with the Bills defense, there's like 5 of those.
Yeah, right. Which is brutal. Okay, we're speaking with Anthony from Cover One here on Boy Green Daily. Make sure you guys show your support wherever you're watching. Yeah, my question is on Von Miller because I'm going to be honest, it caught me off guard because I see as many Bills games as I can outside of the Jets schedule, and I heard some chatter this week, or maybe it was last week, of like, hey, like discussing the possibility, can we get into this Von Miller contract? And I'm like, what? Is that crazy talk? Did I just hear that was I in the dark alleys of Bill's Twitter streets? Did I turn down the wrong way, or is that legitimate stuff?
Yeah, I think for him, and also like, let's put into perspective too, like his age, 34 years old.
Yeah.
He's torn this ACL before. So those 2 things were right there. Like that's kind of something tough to work back from. And then added on top of it, like we're not even a full year removed from him tearing that ACL. So he was always coming back on this kind of pitch count and coming back little by little and being worked into the lineup. And if this Bills defense was healthy or if they were winning games, him being worked into the lineup, nobody's going to care about. Like the talk all off season was, let him rest. Like, don't even play him until November or whatever. But if you do, little by little, get him up to speed. So by December and January, he's ready to go full tilt. And I think that's still been the plan. But the problem is, with all these injuries and the Bills losing, patience is out the window. Everybody wants blood. And when you have a bunch of stars that go down for your defense, you have to look at the other stars to kind of pick up the slack a little bit. And for better or for worse, that injury consideration is kind of out the door for Bills fans. And they want, or maybe even need, Von Miller to be Von Miller right now. And I just don't think he's capable of that. Not a knock against him. People in general, I think the general rule is like, usually don't see a player return back to like their regular performance until like 2 years removed from an ACL. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's not even a full year removed, like we said, and he's 34 and has torn that ACL before. So expecting him to be regular Von Miller as soon as he comes back isn't realistic. And you've seen some positive flashes, but he hasn't really been that guy at all. Leonard Floyd is head and shoulders above, everybody in terms of their best edge rushers. They've gotten a lot out of AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau. Again, even with the injury, still plugging along. But Von Miller is very much I don't want to say a shell of himself, because I feel like that's not right. But he's not at that level you expect him to. He's not a game influencer or having an impact on the game right now as we sit.
How do Buffalo people view the Jets game? Because I've heard both sides. I've heard some say, Bills gave it away. We made stupid decisions. That's the only reason the Jets won. And I've heard the other side of some people just saying, man, the Jets have had the Bills number for a little bit, and they just took it from the Bills. What's the truth, or is it somewhere in between?
It's somewhere in between still. You get – it depends on what sect of the fan base and what type of fan you talk to. I think it's funny that there are people, though, that have come around to the idea of like, man, we got to play the Jets this week. Because I remember – a year ago going into that first game against the Jets. And I know there were some shenanigans that kind of led to the Jets winning that one. But yeah, I remember sitting on my show and talking about how much I loved the Jets defense and what they were doing schematically and from a talent standpoint. And I was like, this game could be like, even though their offense is bad, I was like, this game could be a lot tougher than you think it is. And the amount of hate that I got from Bills fans, be like, I can't believe you're underestimating the Bills. The Jets are the Jets. Zach Wilson sucks. And so it's so funny for me to like have Zach Wilson be the quarterback again and walking into a Bills game and having Bills fans be like, oh, got to face the Jets.
Zach Wilson's 2-0 against the Bills over the last 2 years. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. And so I think there is still that belief in this Bills team for some, which is understandable, that if they play to the level they're capable of, this is one of the best teams in football. Even with all the injuries, if the offense steps up and starts playing to the level they're capable of, this is such a good team. And I think that's where kind of that plus the Zach Wilson piece is what will lead some people to be still dismissive of the Jets. But I think there's a lot of Bills fans that have come around to, even the ones who always wanted knock Sauce Gardner and say, well, he's only good because he grabs and yada, yada. Yeah. I think there is a large sect that has come around to be like, oh, wow, Quinnen Williams is like really good. And oh, wow, like Bryce Huff is good again. And oh, wow, Jonathan Franklin Myers is good again. And oh, like CJ Mosley kind of looks like Baltimore Ravens CJ Mosley. And oh, like I think there is, not to mention what Garrett Wilson is doing. You have a ton of Bills fans who really wanted Breece Hall. So seeing
I
him
remember that. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. I was one of those dudes. Like I had Kenneth Walker as my RB1, but Breece was a close RB2. And so I think you see some of the talent that they do have. There is that respect, but I think like most fan bases, you're going to get some that are like, we're the best, we'll win no matter what. The other team sucks. And then you have that other sect that respects the team a little more and or has that fear of God in their heart about the Bills.
So how do you feel? Like, it's kind of weird because like the Jets just saw Denver go into Buffalo land in a primetime game of must win and lose. And the Jets have already beaten the Bills once. So there's almost, this is probably the wrong way to put it, but a sense of gravy, because most people, I would assume, didn't even think the Jets would beat the Bills once this year, let alone one time and then have the chance to do the impossible and sweep them, which hasn't happened since 2016. So I'm just curious, as you know, Buffalo's heading into this one, is it like the Jets, or because of some of these losses, like, oh boy, okay, we got to strap up here? Like, what
I'm thinking it's a pure, like, we got to strap up here. Like, this is such an important game just from and not to look over the Jets, but like every single game is super important here from here on out for the Bills. Like, they cannot afford to drop really anything as they try to make the playoffs, but especially from a conference standpoint, right. Like they're 5-5, but all 5 losses are in the AFC. So they got
Brutal.
5 conference losses, which is brutal from a tiebreaker standpoint come playoff time. Not to mention this is another division game. It's going to be tough. Like, I think there is, even if so many questions now revolve around the Bills offense with Ken Dorsey going out and Joe Brady coming in, like what kind of offense do we see? What tweaks or wrinkles do we see? Does Josh Allen and this offense kind of get back to the level they can? But regardless of that, you're still just going up against this tremendously talented Jets defense, like what they are from a front perspective. Like I mentioned, some of the dudes, Quinn Williams and Bryce Huff. And I mean, they're again out of those, I gave that stat for Daquan Jones where he's 5th or was, well, technically still is, even though he only played 5 games, but 5th in pass rush productivity out of 235 qualifying defensive linemen. He's 5th. Bryce Huff is number 1 in pass rush productivity at 15.8, all 3 percentage points higher than Micah Parsons. And Jonathan Franklin Myers is 11th. And Jermaine Johnson is still in that top.
Yeah, he's having a good year too. Yeah.
Jermaine Johnson is in that top 50. Quentin Jefferson is in that top 50. And then knowing what Quentin Williams can be at any point in time, like everything starts with that front. Like they're just so good. And we saw in the first game, like this was it's a larger conversation, but so many issues with Ken Dorsey that people blame Dorsey for. There were some individual execution pieces, and some of the calls that Dorsey had from a run standpoint were good calls in the first game, but Quentin Williams would destroy Osiris Torrance or somebody would run through Mitch Morse just because they have such a good front. And so I think from a talent standpoint, the Jets defense has it. They're good schematically. They also do. I think there's something to be said for how they play the Bills, the coverages that they use, the way that they're able to muddy everything for Josh Allen. They do a lot of and some of this is because of like the Bills spacing issues from a pass standpoint, a route distribution standpoint, but they do a good job of making Josh think like, oh, am I going to cover the flat? Nope. Am I going to sink? What am I going to do? And then Josh is like, what are you? I'm going to throw it, pick. Like so it's a tough matchup for this team, and it's a must win for the Bills. And I think it all starts like on that side of the ball, but it is very much a strap in game, especially too, like you said, like you're coming off a loss to, granted, Denver's turning it around, and who knows, maybe we're sitting here at the end of the year and Denver went on like a 12-game winning streak and we're like, oh, the Denver Broncos are like actually a good football team and they turn things around, yada, yada.
Right.
But Denver almost tried to give that game away with all the penalties and all their misfortune and everything that happened there. So that was a game the Bills definitely should have won. And now you go up against a team that's had your number, who already beat you, and you're already wounded. And the Jets are a team that I feel like smells blood. They're confident in themselves. They know they've beaten the Bills. It's very much a like strap in and get ready.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the coaching staff here. So the Bills end up firing Ken Dorsey. They're replacing him with Joe Brady. What do you want to see different with Joe Brady? Because I talked about it with Joe yesterday. The numbers are crazy good for the Bills offense, according to all the numbers I've looked at anyway, from whether it's total yards per game, passing yards per game, some of Josh Allen's numbers, outside of the turnovers, of course. He has the most turnovers in the NFL. So, like, that's obviously a big black mark on the resume. But besides that, a lot of the numbers look good. So what are Bills fans hoping for with this change, especially on a short week?
I think you're looking for some more positivity in terms of performance and stability and consistency from Josh Allen. I think that's first and foremost. He has, and a lot of Bills fans have been, anything that Josh Allen does, he kind of gets a pass. And even when he makes like the most brutal of interceptions or decisions, a lot of people have turned to be like, well, because Ken Dorsey broke it. Like it's Ken Dorsey's fault. Like he's gotten into his head, or he's like calling all these concepts that are like making it impossible for Josh. And I think there is something to be said for that to a degree, right? If you're not being set up for success or you're being set up for failure, then you can, fail. But I think what's been so problematic with this Bills offense, and it's not just Josh Allen, but even when things aren't great from a schematic standpoint or a design standpoint, right? Like you still have the opportunity to make something out of that. You can win with talent or you can win with scheme in the NFL. Like sometimes players just make plays. At the end of the day, that's what it is, right? Players play the game, like players got to make plays. And what they've had so much this year is maybe there's a call that isn't great schematically or from a design standpoint, but that gets compounded by a poor decision from Josh Allen or poor execution from the offensive line or from the pass catchers, or the opposite. Sometimes there is a good call and there's good design. And Josh Allen's had a lot of weird stuff this year, which on the one hand, I can understand people kind of blaming Dorsey for, but just basic things like Khalil Shakir's in the slot corner blitzes, turn and look at Khalil Shakir, hit him hot, basic high school JV football.
Mm-hmm.
Allen won't do that. Like, he either won't see it or he'll see it and not pull the trigger, or just basic, like a levels concept to the left, right? And if that apex defender drives on the underneath, you hit the little deeper one, right? If he sits, you hit the underneath. And it just basic, like, if then scenarios and reads. Allen is coming off of them early and he's not waiting for them to develop, or he's seeing them and he's not hitting them, or he's not seeing them. It's just been a very weird piece. So I think, one, you're looking to see if Joe Brady can kind of right the Josh Allen ship. And it has nothing to do with turnovers. He's always going to be that type of quarterback. He is, I think more people are coming around to the whole modern day Brett Favre thing. I just call it the yin and yang of Josh Allen. He's a very high risk, high reward guy. He makes throws and decisions that majority of the time he should not be making. But the issue is he pulls rabbits out of the hat a bunch, so you understand why he makes them. But so he'll make a throw that is stupid, and 2 out of 10 times it'll get intercepted, and 8 out of 10 everybody's like, oh my God, like only him and Mahomes and Justin Herbert can make that throw. Oh my God, what a tremendous thing. So you're kind of looking for him to just get right a little bit, not necessarily from a turnover standpoint, but from a processing and game script and play flow standpoint. I also think you're looking for Joe Brady to kind of commit more to the run. One of my biggest gripes, arguably probably my biggest gripe with Dorsey, is this Bills offense has had a good run game. And just from a running back carries only standpoint, so not including anything Josh Allen does by design or scrambles, the Bills as a team, for just running back carries only, they're second in EPA per carry. They're second in total EPA. They're second in positive play percentage. They're first in first down percentage. They're fourth in yards per carry. They have the lowest percent of runs that are hit at the line, which is a testament to the offensive line that the Bills have and what they're doing. They have the second lowest stuff percentage, which again is tough, or is a testament to the offensive line. 10th in yards per game, 10th in yards after contact per carry. So they have like a good run game, especially when they commit to it. And I'm also just looking for Joe Brady to kind of stabilize things for Josh Allen, get the run game involved, work a little bit more under center, work to that play action game. And then from there, just see what wrinkles he adds. Does he add some more motion pre-snap? Does he get the running backs involved in the pass game from a schemability standpoint, like he did in Carolina with Mike Davis and McCaffrey when he was healthy? So I think you're just looking for little tweaks and things. You're not going to see a complete revamp and reinstall given where you are at this point in the year, but just seeing if he can right the ship a little bit with Josh Allen and kind of stabilize the group as a whole.
Josh Allen, I looked it up because Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets defensive coordinator, mentioned it at his presser, so I wanted to look into the numbers. A reporter asked him about Josh Allen's running and that, like, it's lower than normal. Like, how do you prepare for that? Or, things of that nature. I went, how much lower is it? He's on pace for, I may have it slightly off, but he's on pace for like something like 82 carries so far this season. That'd be a career low. Was that also an offensive coordinator thing? Was that a Josh Allen thing to try to not get him hurt with the injury situation from last year? Like, what is that? Is there anything to be noted about that, or is that just random circumstance?
So it's been a big discussion piece this year. My personal thought with it is that they've been kind of keeping him in the garage a little bit. One, I think to keep him healthy and protect him. But two, I think they wanted to use the Josh Allen run game as their trump card, or kind of the break glass in case of emergency piece.
I see. Yeah.
I expected it to become a more focal point or integral part of the offense as we move forward in the season. I think it was something that they felt like, listen, and it's understandable, right? Like, why risk our quarterback if we don't have to risk our quarterback, right? Like, and we shouldn't need to lean everything on Josh Allen and make him have to run and pass the ball in order to make this offense go, given what we have on defense, given the rest of the pieces on offense, yada, yada. So I think there is a little bit of that at play. But I also think that potentially maybe has been part of the reason why Josh has been in his own head and hesitant with certain things. And I don't know if it's been like a complete cut and dry, hey, don't scramble, don't run, yada, yada. Like some people are making it out to be. Some Bills fans want to put it out and say, because they hate Sean McDermott, and they're like, Sean McDermott probably told him, hey, you're not allowed to run the ball. Don't scramble. I'm like, that's not a thing. Like, nobody's telling him like, hey, if you have an opportunity to run, don't run. Maybe there is some of it to a degree, but I don't think it's a bigger conspiracy theory piece. I think it's just been, he hasn't scrambled as much, but I also think you're seeing teams spy him a bit more and rush him a bit differently. and kind of force him into certain avenues and lanes, knowing the type of play style that he likes to exhibit. But there's definitely been less from a design run standpoint. You're not seeing as much like, those QB runs with the pin and pull or QB bash, like you're not, or even the QB draws. You saw, one against Denver, that little QB draw where they motion the running back to the trip side, and then Allen gets it, looks briefly, and then takes it up the middle. They did that actually a bunch against the Jets last year, and the Jets snuffed it out like every single time. So they're not running him as much. If he runs in this game, I think that could be another wrinkle to see from Joe Brady. Like maybe that's a piece that Joe Brady leans into. Because again, especially if that was a break glass in case of emergency, type of piece, it's an emergency. The glass needs to be broken at this point for this offense. But yeah, I think overall he's just between scrambles and design runs. You're not seeing it from him as much this year. But again, I think a lot of that is with how defenses are playing him. But the offense definitely has not leaned into that aspect of his game. They very much tried to make him more of a pocket passer and or kind of like a more one-dimensional quarterback in comparison to what he's been in years past.
All right, let's get two more in here real quick before we get you out here. Number one, Sean McDermott. How hot is the seat?
I think it's warm. Well, are you asking from my perspective or from like what it is?
Yes.
Copy. For me, it's getting a little warm, and I think it is a little warm overall. Okay. Now, depending on how you ask, it's super, or who you ask, it's super hot. Like, there's people that think he should have been gone after the 13 seconds game against Kansas City. There's people who think the 12 men is his fault. Dorsey's a scapegoat. I see the comment that just came through and said "en fuego." Yeah, it's a little bit on fire for some people.
Yeah, there it is.
That's a good one for some people. But I think it's reasonably warm just because of where this team is right now. But given all the injuries, given the successful track record he has, I think from an organizational standpoint, it's not too hot for him right now. Now, if they lose the rest of their games on their schedule and they finish with 5 or 6 wins, I think it gets significantly hotter each week, because if you get to the playoffs or you finish a game out or something, I think there's something to be said for, okay, the offense didn't click and you had to fire the offensive coordinator and you had all these injuries, yada, yada. Like, I think from an organizational standpoint, it's not too hot. But if they just completely spiral and go on this tailspin, it becomes significantly hotter. And it's always tough, right? Like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And, I also think too, like, only one team wins the Super Bowl every year. Like, it's hard to win a Super Bowl. Like, the odds are not in your favor. The odds are with the field, the other 31 teams. So you need to be in a position to win every year. But there is something to be said for guys who can't get over the hump. Marty Schottenheimer, et cetera, Marvin Wilson, all those type of guys. But yeah, it's a little warm right now. But I don't think we're moving towards a firing situation unless things really bottom out. Like, and I'm talking, we need like a ton of losses down the stretch. They have to be bad losses. And then we need some sort of like Sean McDermott has lost the locker room type of talk for it to get like significantly warm to the part where he would be gone.
Yeah, that's what it felt like for me, but kind of curious the in-house perspective. All right, let's wrap it up. Prediction time. Jets Bills rematch 425. We'll get the Tony Romo, Jim Nantz crew on this one. What say you? It's a do or die game seemingly for both teams.
So because I'm superstitious, I'm not predicting the score again like the first time I was here.
Yeah,
but I will, like I did the first time. I think it's going to be a close game again. Mm-hmm. For me, everything starts up front from the offensive side. The Bills' offensive line has been very good. But the Jets' defensive front is so nasty, and they cause problems for the Bills again in that week one, just from like a people moving type of standpoint. Like, they had a lot of reps where they just won individually. I think this game is close and tight again. I think it's low scoring.
Okay.
Just because I think the Bills are going to try and find their footing a little bit. But the biggest piece with that is even if they do find their footing, you're still playing like a really good defense. Like, it's a positive for Joe Brady having the Jets as his first assignment, because it's like we're going to be able to kind of see what you're working with right away. But also at the same time, that sucks because you're playing a really good defense right away. You don't have like, there's a low margin for error for him and for this offense. So I think it'll be a low scoring game between what the Jets offense is and what the Bills offense is / what the Jets defense is. I think you're looking at something around a 20-13, a 17-10, 17-14 type aspect. Maybe somebody hits like 24. But I really think this could be the first team to hit 20 or the first team to hit the low 20s wins. Maybe 24-20, something like that. I think it's going to be a fight once again, but just because, again, where these two offenses are, what the Jets defense is, and still what the Bills defense is to a degree, but more so what the Jets offense is. So it's a fight. It's going to be the, good old fashioned slugfest. And I expect a low scoring, close game.
This could be a loser leaves town match. Jets at 4-5, Bills 5-5. Who knows how this could turn out? So it could be very interesting.
Can I ask you a question? I saw it in the chat, and it's kind of in my head. Is Robert Saleh on the hot seat a bit, depending on how the season goes?
You know what's funny? I'm in a similar camp to you that for the Jets to make any changes, although there's an interesting wrinkle that does not exist in Bills land, but for the Jets to do anything to Saleh or anyone for that matter, even Nathaniel Hackett or anybody, I think the Jets would have to have an epic collapse where, what are they? So they're 4-5 right now. So they'd have to have 5, 6, 7 wins. I don't even know about 7, like 5, 6 wins and bad losses down the stretch and some sense of lost locker room for the Jets to make a change, in my opinion, because as I was talking about on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, is that, Saleh, Joe Douglas, Nathaniel Hackett, and the entire group sold Aaron Rodgers on coming here. They as a message, as a group, sold him here. So for there to be any changes before he ever really gets an opportunity to play, that could make Rodgers say, no, this is not what I signed up for. And then all hell can break loose because this is Aaron Rodgers' world and we're just all living in it. So I think that part of it actually helps Saleh and company because he believes in all those guys. He loves all those guys. So yeah, like I said, it would have to be a lost locker room. It would have to be a disaster. So you always have to leave the chance out there. But I'd be stunned, quite frankly. I know that may make some Jet fans angry, but I'd be stunned if they made any changes because of Rodgers coming back. Him not coming back, maybe then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. But the fact that he's trying to come back this season, let alone for 2024, I think that changes the dynamic dramatically.
That'd be that.
All right. Well, Anthony, it was cool to have you on for the very first time back in week 1, and you were so good. We had to bring you back on again. So I think this will have to be a new annual tradition of bringing you here on these shows for these Jets Bills breakdowns, man.
I appreciate it. I'm always down anytime you want me to come back. It's funny. I am superstitious, and I was like, damn, I did this show the last time and the Bills lost to the Jets. I was like, but they've lost to the Jets before, so that's fine.
I was about to say, I would have totally understood. No, thank you. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And I'm like,
I'm superstitious. Yeah. I get it. But no, I had a blast the first time. I had a blast again. I appreciate you having me. And anytime you want me, you got me. This was awesome.
All right, beautiful. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning for another Boy Green Daily, the Christmas Eve before the Jets-Bills game. Looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.